We got a huge section of fence to lay out, like 479 feet huge. We're gonna show you how to do that. So when laying out a long section of fence like this, we need to know where it's gonna go, which we already know that because the fence line has already been surveyed, or not the fence line, the property line. The customer wants to come in off a foot, so we're gonna come off the property line 1 foot, and we're gonna have the traditional fence gap fence. The only tricky part about that is that's an electric fence, so we're gonna go ahead and stay about as far away from that thing as we possibly can. All right, we have a property pin right here. Where's my hammer? The leaves swallowed my hammer. So in case you didn't know what a property pin looks like, this is a property marker. When planning for your fence project, make sure that you're putting your fence on your property, because otherwise you're putting your fence on your neighbor's property and that becomes, hey, that's my fence. No, it really isn't. It's their fence and you just bought it and put it on their property. So now it's their fence. Know whose property you're putting your fence on. So we're gonna run way down there. Everything that our string line's gonna do, our fence is gonna do. So if we have a bow in our string, our fence is gonna have a bow in it. We have to make sure that we get that thing as straight as possible. Today is a prime example. See this? These little tethers right here? How they're blowing? Welcome to Wyoming. It's usually windy here. We got a nice cross breeze going about that way. If we put our stakes too far apart, the wind's gonna blow our string and we'll get a little bit of a hoop in it, a little bit of a belly, and that'll reflect on how our holes are dug. If there's a little bit of a curve in the string, there's gonna be a curve in the holes. So when we go to set our fence line, there's gonna be a curve in the fence line. That's why it's so important to get our string straight. Now, I don't know the distance from this marker to where I just drove my first stake at, but at least 200 feet, 150. Since we have a control point here from the surveyor, we're gonna pull off of this stick 10 inches. So we're gonna pull 10 inches off of this lath. Man, that's awesome. It's loose. If I pull an arm's length, it's tight. I don't have to sit and pull like 20 feet of string. I love this stuff, it's amazing. So if we pull 10 inches over, and now if I flick my string, it's off the ground. He thought you were gonna put him to work. So anyways, we have from point to point. Now I can look down that string. I can see that there's a tiny little bow going that way in the string due to the wind. So I'm gonna go ahead and go down there. I'm gonna drive an intermediate stake, and Mark's gonna look at the string back and he's gonna tell me if I need to go one way or the other. We're gonna pound that stake, make sure that that string is 100% straight. Good? Now I don't know what this distance is from that stake to that stake to that stake, but I have a lot less play in the string. So now I'm pretty confident that we have a straight line. We can continue laying out our string line all the way back. We're gonna continuously do that same thing. We're gonna go about maybe 150, 120 feet, put a stake in, sight that string in with this string because we know that this one's straight now. We have something to sight off of. We also have the control points that the surveyor left us, and we can also double check ourselves to make sure that we're going in the correct direction. Because at the very end of this, we come off of a hill and we dive down, and I can't see those points yet, but if we hit 10 inches all the way down, we know that the string is going straight. That's what we want our fence to do. As I'm pulling the string tight with this hand, I can hold my stake, pull my string tight, and I can look down my string line to the stuff that we already set back there, hold my stake to the string, and figure out exactly where it needs to go. I think it's right there. I'm at like 9.5 inches off of my stake. Could that be me, or could it be the surveyor? Could be either, because I don't see an actual like nail. And that one is really tight. So actually, we're still at 10 inches. We're on point. Like something like that. About 10, 9 3/4. Right here, as I'm coming down this slight little hill, I'm losing all the string at the back. I can't see that anymore, so I might have to add a couple more stakes here just to be able to bring that down so that way I have a reference point and I'm bringing it straight. If I don't do that, I have the risk of getting my fence off because I lost the point back behind it. If I can't see that point, I could put a slight turn in it and start going one direction or the other. So from the very beginning to right here was like 479 feet. One straight long stretch. So we're almost out of string, but we made it to the next point that we were given by the surveyor. But we came down that hill, so we still have yet to see if we're still in line. So we can pull the string tight, measure off of that, hope that we got about 10 inches. So we got 9. I'm gonna double check the stuff coming down the hill behind us, make sure that we're good there, and see if we can go ahead and use this or not. So from this point right here, we can look down that string and see that where our spool is, where we left off, matches this string right here. Even though there's like 3 stakes in between, they're going the same direction. That bottom one's not tweaked at all. We can see it a lot better from the top of the hill looking down than we could from the bottom of the hill looking back up. Also, for another hintful fact, check the strings both directions. We're having a little bit of a harder time seeing the string going that way, whereas if we look this way, towards where the sun is facing, we can actually see the string glisten in the sun. Look at it both directions and see if you can see it a little bit easier, more one way than the other. Hintful fact. I went back up to the top of the hill and kind of looked at everything back behind us that we already previously did. Thought we were off just by a little bit, so I moved a couple stakes in towards the property just a little bit. Ended up having to move this one a little bit because we did that. And since we did that, we have, to the center of that T-post, we have 10 inches. And our line coming down the hill looks really good. I think we're spot on. We're almost out of string, so we cannot go to the end of our corner post. But that shows you how much string you can fit on one of those reels. What did I say, 479 plus probably about another 50? Probably like 550 feet of string on that one reel. Before we take the string down, we're gonna go all the way back to the very beginning and start laying out all of our post markings coming this way. All the way back. So on this particular part that we're gonna get ready to do next, this is where some heavy opinions are probably gonna come into play. Typically we'd pull a 300-foot tape from point to point. We're over 300 feet, so we're not even gonna do the math to try to find equal sections. We're just gonna go through with a simple tape. Our max spacing that we can go from post to post is 8 feet on center. And since we're expecting to hit some rock, we don't want to maximize and max out our rails. I'd rather cut them. And the reason that I'd rather cut them is because if we encounter some rock and based on how big the rock is, our auger could shift one way or the other. If we're already maxed out on our post spacings, and if we hit a rock and shift over too far one direction, now our hole's off, that post is off. If we don't catch it, the rest of the posts are off. So I'm actually gonna go 3 inches under. We're gonna go 7'9" spaces, probably until about the last 100 feet or so. Then we'll break out that tape, break out the calculator, divide those evenly and figure out the even amount of spacings to make everything blend together just right. Another benefit of cutting for me is I can set my post and my concrete that much faster without having to make sure that that post is at the true 8-foot mark. Either way you do it, you're spending a little bit more time here or there. I'm spending my time on cutting my rails. I was talking about how we were going to use a 25 foot and we're going to lock it in at 7'9". Well, we did that all the way down and we've got about 100 feet left and we're going to switch. We're going to go to the 300-foot tape. We're going to take our measurement. We're going to divide that by equal amount of spaces, and don't forget that those spaces cannot exceed what? 8 feet. Because why? That is exactly how long the rails are. So we're going to take our measurement and I'll show you how to do that equation and we'll figure it out.
What am I supposed to do with this?
You're supposed to put it on the ground. Hit put A. If you don't have anybody to do this task, Alan figured out the other day you can use a boat anchor. So you can put a boat anchor on top of your tape. I don't have one. I don't know why he had one in his truck, but he had one.
You might be thinking now, why do you need a boat anchor? The wind blows here. You never know when you need to just weigh something down and keep it where you want it.
Okay, so after running that tape measure out, we had 68 feet, 8 inches. So what we're gonna do, so we have 68 feet, 8 inches. How many? Let's go divided by 8. That's not enough. So go back times 8 equals, we'll go divide by 9. That's it right there. Gives us a spacing of 7 feet, 7 inches and 9/16. So we're gonna take that measurement, we're gonna add it to itself so we can just continue hitting the equals button as we walk down here. And like I said before, there's other ways to do this. This is just the way that I was taught. This is the way that works for me. Plus 7 feet, 7 inch, 9/16. After we mark that first one out, we'll hit the equals button and keep hitting that button until we get down to the gate. So we're gonna go ahead and cross our marks here. We can mark out our gate opening. So as you can tell, we're out of string. We have to take all the string that's up there, untie it from all the stakes, wind up all the string, and start again. We'll probably tie onto this stake right here. We're gonna continue that all the way down to the corner for laying out the rest of the fence. If you guys wanna see how to side over a hill, make sure and watch that video right here. And if you guys wanna see the rest of this crazy custom fence build, make sure and check that video out right here. And we hope you guys have a good dang day. If you ever wonder what 600 feet or so of string looks like? Looks about like this. Wonder where you can get it. Huh.